Everyone, this is Nithin Ramachandra from the NR Hour Sports Show, back with another episode. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Now, let's start the week up fresh, and we're back with the special episode. So, fans, please tune in, buckle your seatbelts, get your popcorn ready. This is going to be another great show. And before we introduce our guests, we are live on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, and on all the podcast platforms. So, fans, please tune in. You can ask questions on our Spreaker app, so everybody knows that. But today's guest, we have a really special guest. His name is Brandon Puffer. He's a former Major League Baseball pitcher. He pitched out of the bullpen. What a great career, and everybody knows him too. And what an inspiring story. He actually went to prison in his career, but was able to get out. And he'll discuss it for you guys there too. But he has an amazing book out there. We're going to get to his book too. It's called Bullpen to the State Pen, which is really amazing. You can find it on Amazon. So everyone go check that out, get his book on Amazon. But Brandon Puffer, like I said, amazing career, amazing baseball career, played with a lot of great teammates, played for the Houston Astros, most notably. He's been on a few other podcasts. That's how our team reached out to him. But Brandon, thank you for joining the show. It's truly an honor, and I can't wait to hear more about your story. And our fans, like I said, please tune in. And how are you and your family doing? And thank you again.
Hey, Nathan. Yeah, we're doing great, man. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really hopeful that we can encourage at least one person with our conversation, and just love talking baseball, love being transparent and vulnerable about my story to try to help encourage others, or even maybe put up some stop signs for those that are heading down the wrong direction. So my family's great. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, so let's start off. Tell our fans, how did you get into the game of baseball, and especially a lot in this generation, a lot of kids look up to baseball players. But who did you look up to in baseball wise, and when did you get interested in baseball?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Mission Viejo, California, so Orange County, Southern California. And my dad, very early on, when I was 7, he coached a team because I wasn't old enough to play, and so he kind of said I was going to be the bat boy, and then snuck me in there, and I did okay, and I fell in love with the game, and more importantly, fell in love with the camaraderie of the families and just hanging out the Little League field. And both my parents volunteered, and so really Little League baseball just kind of fostered that love for me. And I looked up, being in Southern California, my dad was a diehard Dodger fan. So loved Fernando, loved Oral Hershiser moving forward a little bit. But then even like there's some guys that maybe no one even heard of, like John Henry Johnson. When I was at Anaheim Stadium, threw me a ball and said, hey, something very positive to me. And it's like, I always remember the impact you can have as an athlete on a young man or young lady just by a simple gesture. Never forgot that name because he just threw me a ball as I was hanging over the rail trying to shag and beg for baseballs.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. And there's another guy. Obviously, everybody knows Sandy Koufax. Did you watch him growing up too?
I'm old, but I'm a little younger than that. So my dad told me great Koufax stories, and I probably got more involved. I was born in '75, so kind of like mid 80s is when I really started paying attention myself, and started clinging on to some different guys at that point. But I mean, yeah, what an amazing career, and just a historical Dodger by all means.
Yeah, your career is interesting too. And obviously, did you throughout your baseball career before you got to the majors, did you get to experience like the offensive side of it, like play out infield or play the outfield or infield, got to hit before being a pitcher?
I did, yeah. Growing up, Little League through high school, I was a decent hitter. Played kind of like some shortstop growing up, and then I kind of outgrew that position and played first base in high school. And I think probably most of the guys that pitch at the high level were athletes growing up and did both. But then you kind of pick and choose, or not necessarily pick and choose. They kind of pick and choose for you what your route will be. You want to make it all the way up. So as soon as I signed and got drafted, I was a pitcher only, and kind of other than those fun, pitchers BP days that we have occasionally, it was more focused on just pitching. I got a few at bats throughout my career, nothing to show for it, but yeah, I liked hitting when I was young. And then if you're not working on it, you're not doing BP every day, and you go out and face 95 with movement, it's like, oh, this isn't really all that easy.
Yeah. So tell our fans, and when did you transition to the pitching side? And your delivery was interesting too. You had like a sidearm delivery. But tell us when did you transition from the hitting to the pitching?
Yeah, so that happened immediately when I signed. I was drafted by the Minnesota Twins out of high school, And as soon as I signed and took off to rookie ball, I was at that, it was known that I was just going to be a pitcher from that point forward. And at that point, I was a traditional over the top kind of right hander with a slow curveball. And I toiled around in A ball for about 5 years, got released 2 or 3 times. Really wasn't all that effective. Did okay, but not enough to really open those eyes and climb the ladder. And so I had a pitching coach with the foresight to come out and kind of ask me if I would consider changing my arm angle. And I think it was a great lesson in going, hey, this got you here, but if you want to keep moving on, you're going to have to adapt a little bit. And so I said, sure. And he dropped my arm angle down. I was actually during batting practice. I always share this. My arm was really sore from pitching the day before, so I was just slinging balls in from the side because it felt better. Yeah. And he kind of saw that arm action and thought, hey, maybe this could work. And so thank you to Andre Rabone for dropping me down to sidearm and probably buying me about 10 more years. I would have never pitched in the big leagues over the top, I don't think. And that transition really helped me to climb a little faster.
Did you tell your coaches maybe you could have been a two-way player like Shohei Ohtani?
Well, I don't think they would have believed me. And as soon as they saw me swing, they sure wouldn't have believed me. So you know how it is. Every pitcher in professional baseball wants to brag about what a great hitter we were. And certainly we all did. And then, most of the position guys want to say what a great pitcher they were, and they probably were. So you have that banter and fun like that. But I knew, no way. Moving in, Shohei is such a once in a lifetime. I mean, there's probably other guys that can do it. I just wasn't one of them.
Wow. Yeah. So speaking, tell our fans about your draft experience and and I love seeing all the players' reactions when they get drafted with their families, friends. And we just saw it with the NFL draft, a lot of players with their families reaction. So take us through your experience. Obviously, it was different back in the day till now, but what was that like being with your family and then getting your name called from the Minnesota Twins?
Yeah, it was wonderful. And it was actually unique because, like you said, there was no social media or cell phones. This is 1994. And so the draft happened. I was still in high school. In California, we go a little longer. And so I was in school and I got word through the PA system. They announced it while I was at school that I had been drafted, and super cool. And then got together with my family, and the scout came over and we officially signed. And that was really neat. That was a fun time. Again, it's so different now because you don't have, social media, and they don't announce it in the draft room and all those types of things, but just a really special moment for my family and I. And you think at that point it's like I've made it, and then you ship off to rookie ball and realize how far away you really are, and you got to just keep climbing. And to your point about the NFL draft, a young man named Deuce Vaughn from our area here.
Let's go.
His dad with the cow. What a cool moment! I got to watch him play a little in high school because he's right here in the area I live in, and there were several great moments. But yeah, that was so neat, man. What an awesome experience for that family.
Yeah, I'm a big Cowboy fan, so I'm happy. I'm excited.
Awesome.
I love that. That is the best pick, I think, out of all the picks we had. I mean, I love all the picks that we got, but I think this is a home run pick. This guy, Deuce Vaughn, is amazing, and Chris Vaughn is being a scout with us, and it's just have you been part of that situation where you've seen players? I mean, we never see that in a while, but have you been in that situation where you see players get drafted and seeing a family member being part of a team and making that call? Have you seen that before?
I don't think I've seen anything quite like that. That was such a neat moment. I mean, I've known some baseball families, longtime scouts. I actually played with Moises Alou. His dad was the manager. So I've seen some of that cool, like, wow, what a great thing for, obviously the Ripkins and stuff like that. But in terms of like the draft room and being able to make that call and being the one to tell your son they're drafted, I personally haven't experienced it. But yeah, what a cool moment.
So we are live with former MLB pitcher Brandon Puffer. Please tune in. We're going to do a fan Q&A at the end of the show here. But so once you got drafted with the Minnesota Twins in '94, and you started with the Gulf Coast League. Talk about that experience. What did you learn in that league?
Oh my goodness, yeah, so much. It was such an awakening. So when the Twins, had drafted me, they sent us out this pamphlet. I don't know if AJ would remember that. I know you had AJ present. And they had a high A team there called the Fort Myers Miracle. And it must have been 4th of July because they chose the photo where it was packed and it was a night game and it was awesome. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then you show up at a rookie ball and you're like, oh no, you guys play on the side field and your game's at noon in the middle of the heat and no one's going to be there. So it was kind of I don't know about humbling experience. I would say humbling, but like not what you expected in terms of you definitely had more folks at your high school games than you did at rookie ball. And it was just different. You're like, okay. And you realize again, okay, we've got work to do. We're not there. We haven't made it. So it was a great transition. It was a tough transition because you're 18 and you got all this freedom now, and you're a ball player living with four other guys or whatever it is that are in the same boat, and you're just like, we don't know how to handle this. And so a lot of failure off the field, failure on the field as well, but just a lot of learning, a lot of adversity, and but also I still keep in touch with several of those teammates because we were all trying to figure this thing out together. You built some really strong relationships.
Yeah. So speaking of, you didn't make your MLB debut till 2002 with the Houston Astros, but take it there. There's a player I want to get to later on from Pittsburgh Pirates. He spent 13 years in the minor leagues and he finally got his chance. But take us to the adversity that baseball players have to go through. And you went through this in the minor leagues. And before you made your major league debut, how was it tough for you to be in that situation where you had to wait 5 years to get your chance?
Yeah, I think it was more like 8 for me. And
8 years.
I know you're talking about Maggie. I hope I'm
Yeah.
saying his name right. I've been following that. So cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
so awesome. But yeah, it is tough. But I think, I get to speak to guys now. I have a program. I get to talk to guys who are going off in the minor leagues. And it's like, guys, here's the deal. It's going to be tough. It's going to be long bus rides. You're going to be homesick. You're going to struggle and go through slumps. But you have to remember what your childhood dream was. And this is the only thing you ever wanted to do. In most cases, some guys, maybe they're not as passionate. For me, it was like, that's all I ever wanted to do. So there was nothing that was going to make me go, you know what, I'm done. I'm quitting. Now, there was hard times and certainly, times where you need to lean on your family and lean on your buddies. But I never had that moment of just like, I'm quit. I'm not doing it. I was like, you know what, I'm going to persevere as long as I can until every team says you're not good enough and they take the uniform away, and then that's it. And I was actually fortunate enough to be at the game when another guy, like what currently happened with the Pirates, a guy named Alan Zinter, he's still in the game. I want to say it was 13 or 14 years he made his debut with Houston when I was there, and I'll never forget it. I mean, I will never forget how he grinded and such a great teammate and leader, and he got his opportunity. So certainly I was thrilled to death to get mine after 8 years. But watching guys like what's
Yeah.
happening with the Pirates, young man, all that's it's just incredible. What a great moment.
Yeah, and I'm happy for him with his family too, and the Pirates are having a great season too, and which is another great story for them. They're one of the top teams in the league, so that's surprising. Yeah.
Awesome. I love following it.
Yeah, so talk about your debut with the Astros 2002 April 17. Take us to that moment when you got called up. I mean, went to the Astros, and what was the first thing you said to your family once that happened?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So it kind of got a little bit spoiled for me. I was in New Orleans and I was in AAA at the Astros. They called me in, tell me, hey, you're meeting the team in Cincinnati tomorrow. As soon as I got out, I went to call everybody, and they had announced it at the AAA stadium here in Round Rock where I live. And so they kind of knew already. So, they gave me oh yeah, we heard, but just the cool, calling my family and just that moment of it's really going to happen. And then really just a surreal kind of out of body experience for the next week or two, to be honest with you. Flew to Cincinnati, went in the clubhouse and kind of looked around at those names on those jerseys and Bagwell and Biggio and
Yeah.
Berkman, and just like, oh man, I'm here. Billy Wagner, Brad Ausmus, and saw my jersey hanging, and that was really cool. Really kind of sunk in then. And then to your point about my debut, I want to say it was just a day or two later. I got to kind of just enjoy and sit back, and I was like, hey, it's time to work, right? So I got out there in a 7-2 ball game at the bottom of the ninth. We were up, and I'll tell you the story because I think it's really cool for a debut. Jimmy Williams was our manager. He was a veteran guy, and he had a meeting with us in spring training, and he basically lined it out. He said, hey, if I come out to talk to you guys, I'm coming to pull you. No words, no question. You want to avoid any of that confrontation that can
Right.
happen. I'll send the pitching coach if we're having a conversation. So, okay, I filed that away as a rookie. And man, I got that first hitter out. I struck out Todd Walker, and I'm feeling pretty good. Like, hey, this is easy, right?
Yeah.
And then I got another out, and then a guy got on. I hit a guy in the back.
Oh my
Guy
God.
got a double. We're first and third, 2 outs. And in a big league ball game, things can turn quick. So they got Billy Wagner hot in the bullpen. I could hear it. I mean, the glove is pumping. He's throwing hard, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta go. And then here comes Jimmy Williams, right? So I remember what he said, and I'm like, oh man, I really want to finish this inning. It's my debut. And I went to hand him the ball, and he said, well, no, wait a minute, Puff. Wait a minute. He said, so what's the deal? You got family in town. You have some phone calls to make. It's your debut, right? I said, yes, sir. I'll probably give some calls. Some people flew in last night. He said, well, what are you going to do for dinner? You're going to eat in the clubhouse. You're going to take them out and buy them some big league. What are you going to do? I said, well, I'll probably have a snack and then take my family to eat. And he goes, Because I'm sure they're hungry. He goes, and I'm hungry. So why don't you get this last out so we can get out of here? And I was like, still in the game, just that exhale. Veteran manager just knew exactly what I needed. Everything was speeding up on me, slowed me down, got the next guy out, got to shake hands with my teammates. And it was just obviously a memory I'll never forget. A, just because of the debut, but B, that mound visit that I'll never forget.
That's what I like to see. And obviously you have the best closer in the game, Billy Wagner, throwing gas and he's getting ready quick. But to be able for a manager like a veteran manager to go out there for you, to speak to you, to change up your whole mentality, and obviously that's an amazing story right there. And I love seeing that, because I don't like when managers take out the pitchers early. I want to see them pep talk them and see if they can change. And for that, and what did that mean to you? Like, how special is that for you?
Oh, it was huge. It showed not only a little bit of faith, like, hey, I believe you can get this out. I believe, yeah, Wagner's ready in case we need it, but you got this. And also, again, just the presence of mind to know what I was going through. Right, as a rookie, he knew, he'd seen it before. He's like, everything's sped up, everything's going fast. You're getting out ahead of yourself. And if I go out there and just kind of calm him down, he has the stuff to get this done. But mentally, we've got to just tone him down a notch. So it's really cool. I mean, it meant everything to me, and I'll never forget that moment with Jimmy. And then as a coach now, sometimes you got to go out there and get a little in someone's face. Sometimes you got to go relax, make a joke. You just kind of got to figure that out. And I remember that moment and what it did for me.
Yeah, so talk about the players you played with. I didn't realize you played with Nelson Cruz. This guy is amazing. He's still going at it strong with the Padres, and I don't know, he's like Tom Brady of baseball. But
Yeah.
so what was it like playing with him? And obviously you mentioned Greg Biggio, Jeff Bagwell, um, uh, even Brad Lidge was there on the team, and Greg Zahn. Or I can go down the list, but what was it like being part of that team?
Oh, it was awesome, man. Those guys, I mean, every guy you just mentioned, just great guys. Some of them I'm still in contact with, some of them not. But once you're a teammate and you're kind of in that brotherhood, it's you always pull for them. And if you were to run into them today, it would just be like you pick up like you never, just how you left off. And but Nelly Cruz, man, what it's amazing what he's still doing. Like, he was not super young when we played together, still productive as all get out. And just to watch him continue to do it. And by the way, I mean, just a tremendous person, tremendous teammate, a humble man. So it's just so great to see good guys like that just continue to have success. And I can't even imagine the impact he's still having on all those teammates he's had. Not only is he producing with the bat, because you need to, but also in the clubhouse as a leader. Teams are going, hey, if he produces, even better, which he does. But he's just a great leader of showing guys the way on how this thing's supposed to be done as a professional.
Yeah, and also Lance Berkman. And what was he like as a teammate, Lance Berkman? We're Yankee fans, and we got a little taste of him when he went to the Bronx. He played with the Yankees throughout in his career. But what was he like as a teammate?
Lance was awesome, man. Lance, so we're still in contact. Main reason is he coaches a college here in Texas, and I send players his way. We do camps, and so we're in contact fairly often. But as a player, what blew my mind about Lance is he literally could just roll out of bed and hit. And what I mean by that is, like, I remember, and I said this to him, I said, I remember one night rolling out to the bullpen, and the bullpen guys are always the last guys out of the clubhouse. We all know that. And so I'm walking out, the game's in like, I don't know, 15, 20, probably 20 minutes. And Lance is in a cutoff. He's on a computer. I go, oh, what's up, LB? Hey, you got the night off? Oh, no, I'm in there. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, oh, he's studying the pitcher, right? Nah, I'm looking at some wrenches for sale. And I'm like, the game's in 20 minutes. I go to the bullpen, hits a homer in his first at bat like 20 minutes later. And I'm like, the dude was just sitting in the office. He wasn't in the cage. He wasn't. So he just could, like, he was such a natural. Obviously, he worked very hard and at his craft, but just that blew my mind, because I'm a very anxious guy. Like, I'm always like routine and I got to get everything done. And he was just there relaxing. Like, I trust myself. I know I'll be ready to hit when the time comes. And so, but he also was a great leader, man of faith. He just, he led by example for our team while I was there, and then I'm sure his whole career.
Yeah. So you spent with the Astros from 2002 to 2003, and there's an interesting twist to your story too. And fans tune in for this one, because you were with Boston for a little bit in 2004, September 2nd, and everybody knows what happened there. Everybody knows the history there, but I don't want to get to that. But you didn't pitch in the bullpen. But take us to story there when you were with Boston. You were designated for assignment, and when they won the World Series, you ended up getting the ring.
I did. That was wild. So yeah, I was with the San Diego Padres to start the year, and I'm in San Diego. I played in Portland, Oregon, AAA, and then I got called to San Diego from Southern California. So I'm playing for the Padres, first year at Petco Park, living in a little townhome, walking to the beach and the stadium, and close to my home. So I'm feeling pretty good about it, to be honest with you. But then we're on a plane ride home. I think we were on the plane home from Arizona, and they came back, told me I got traded to the Red Sox, and I said, okay. And they said, you're going to go to Boston tomorrow, the whole deal. Well, through the course of that flight, they traded for another guy, a lefty named Jimmy Anderson. And they decided to send him to the big leagues and me to AAA. So now I'm like, oh man, I just went from the big leagues near home to the other side of the country in AAA. But that's okay. That's how this game works. And so I went down there, worked hard, pitched in Pawtucket for a month or two. And sure enough, they called me up, like you said, September 2nd. Typically, when you're called up in September, you're there to stay because the roster's expanded, right? And so I'm thinking, man, I'm in Fenway, got my uniform. I'm sitting there. I was there for one game. I'm sitting there in the bullpen. Derek Lowe threw a great game. Got to feel the atmosphere, which was wonderful. Came in the next day. I think I got through BP, and then they called me in the office. And what had happened is Johnny Damon dove for a ball and hurt his finger. They thought it was broken. So they go, hey, we got to go get an outfielder. So they called up Adam Heisdew, great guy, awesome guy. And he wasn't on the roster, so they needed a roster spot, and that was mine. They designated me for assignment. Terry Francona was very gracious. He's like, man, this is messed up. We don't normally do this. I don't understand it. The wild part is Damon ended up being fine. So Heisdew got to ride out the whole thing. I'm sitting at home watching. But yeah, so sure enough, I signed with the Giants the next year in 05. And spring training, I got a call from the Red Sox asking about my ring size. And it was amazing to me. I mean, I had no idea. I always liked a kid that I really did contribute because as Padres, we played interleague there in Fenway, and I pitched, and we got beat by Boston. So I'm like, there you go. I contributed as a Padre. So in some ways I did, but at the end of the day, it was just one of those things where it's like I didn't feel like I contributed or deserved it, but I know they were super happy about that being their first time in so long that they were pretty generous about who they gave rings to.
We actually had Johnny Damon on our show 2 years ago. Yeah,
No way. That's awesome.
we'll send you we'll send you the interview afterwards. But
he probably has no idea about that. Like, if I was to tell him that, he'd be like, "Oh no way! I didn't know. I'm the reason you got sent out."
Yeah, but he was awesome on our show. He was interactive, and what a great guy he is. Great career, and obviously won the World Series with the Red Sox and the Yankees, and amazing person too. And he's doing great things off the field. But you did contribute with the roster moves though. You were part of the you basically you know what if Johnny Damon didn't get injured, you would have been on the World Series roster, in my opinion.
No, if had that not happened, just because September, they usually the rosters are set and you're good, so for sure. But that's just one of those moments, like in life, it's just anything can happen and nothing's guaranteed. So that was just another case of that. Of okay, what's next? We got to go do it. They were actually very gracious. My 10-year high school reunion was the next day, and I was scheduled to fly out. Like, I think it was like on a Monday. I was going to hang out in Boston for a night. I said, would it be possible to send me out today? I'll join my reunion. And so I did. My buddy was like, hey, wait a minute, you're supposed to be in Boston. I'm like, no, not anymore. So I did get to do that and enjoy that. But yeah, just another kind of one of those, I guess, I don't know if you call it a bump in the road, but just part of the journey.
Yeah. So speaking of the Red Sox team, what did he like? I mean, seeing it by far from a side there, seeing them coming back from an 0-3 deficit with the Yankees and then being in the Cardinals. What was that? How special was that team that year?
Man, so what a run that was. I mean, down to your last out against the greatest closer in baseball. Unbelievable. Down like you said, 3-0. But what I noticed in my very short time there, and it was short, is they were so loose. Like Big Papi and Manny and Pedro and all these guys were just so loose. Well, Johnny Damon, obviously, and Millar, they called themselves the idiots or whatever it was. Right? I mean, literally, I was only there a day and a half, and I just felt this energy of just relax and loose and let's get after it, and just all these things that I think must have contributed to them, coming back from that deficit. Because I doubt they ever panicked, or I doubt they ever, changed that atmosphere or whatever the case may be. They just kept getting after it and trusted what got them there. And as a baseball fan, which I certainly am, and I had no expectations of getting anything if they won it, I was just so pumped for baseball to see that come back. And every year since then, it's like, hey, don't count them out, because remember what the Red Sox did in 04, right? Very cool. Very neat moment.
Yeah, so take us to that time when you signed with the Giants and coming back to California, and your father's a Dodgers fan, and so what was it like? I mean, what was his reaction when he saw you sign with the Giants, and because they're in the same division? But
Yeah.
what was that interaction like when
Oh man, my stinking dad. He's the best. I love him to death. We grew up watching Dodger games together. We tore up our living room when Gibby hit that home run in '88, Kirk Gibson. I mean, you see my hat right now. It's Vince
Yep.
Scully. The
Yeah.
greatest moment of my career for my dad and I is simply when Vince Scully called my name in a game. He's
Oh
like, "That's
wow.
it, man. We're good." I could get tears talking about it. He's like, "Vince said your name. That's it." And so we're just truly fans, right? So my dad, being a proud dad, I played in 11 or 12 organizations. He when I signed with the Giants, he said, "I'm not getting a hat." He had a hat of every. I said, "I know, I get it." And so I'm like, "That's fine." But then he took it a step further, Nathan, and he came to visit me at, I think at the time it was Pac Bell in San Francisco, and he came to the family room in his Dodger hat. And I
Oh,
don't know if you're aware, but every team has a kangaroo court where you've probably heard about it, right? And I got fined in kangaroo court because my dad wore a Dodger hat to the Giants family room. So, and I told him, he goes, "Hey, you know me, I'm not taking my Dodger hat off." I said, "I know, and I respect it." So he didn't love it, but at the end of the day, that was more of a, I hate to say it, but the business part of things, right? So, but good experiences all the way around there.
hey, speaking of Vince Scully, rest in peace,
Yes.
true legend, goat of baseball, and obviously he called other sports also, but mainly baseball. But take us to that moment when you got the soundbite of him calling your name in the game, and this take us to that moment when that happened.
Yeah, it was so wonderful, man. We came into Dodger Stadium and played there, and obviously I'm not hearing it. I'm in the bullpen, but
Yep.
when I came out, my dad told me later that it was just how he had a way of kind of like calling you in and telling where right down the street from Downey, California, and grew up right down the street. All these different things that he just had a way of painting that picture. And I just get chills thinking about it when my dad was just like, "Hey, son, that's it. Like Vin Scully said your name," and I mean, just I have one other buddy who same thing. He's in the same boat, and he still has the video actually where he hits a home run in a spring training game, and Vin called it. And it's just like, what a, like you said, what an absolute honor to even just be a small part of that. Because to me, he is the goat, man. He is, and I just can still listen to like his call on Gibson's home run or various calls he's made and just be touched by him. So he left such a great legacy that way.
Oh. Yeah, so it was like being in the same pitching staff as Matt Cain, LaTroy Hawkins, Jason Smith, and then playing with Mike Matheny.
Oh yeah, man, it was awesome. Matt Cain and I, he came in. We were in AAA together first in Fresno, and he was obviously a highly touted prospect at the time, and so that was neat. I knew him a little bit from AAA. Matheny, man, one story that stands out with Matheny for me is I came into a game. I think we were in Detroit. Again, it must have been interleague, and I yanked a slider in warmups. And he's whatever he is at this time. He's 12 years in or more, and he just slid over, knocked it down, bounced on it, threw it back. And I mean, we're in warmups. Like most catchers, honestly, just kind of let that go and let the umpire throw him another ball. I said, "Mike, man, like, what?" He says, "Well, if I don't block it for any warmups, I won't block it in the game." And every catcher I've coached since then, I tell that story to. I said, "Look, if Mike Matheny, the consummate professional, at 14 years in on a whatever game in Detroit, I don't know what it meant. I mean, they all mean something, but you know what I mean? It's like could block in warmups. You can't be lazy in the bullpen, man. Like, come on." And so that just stood out. What a pro he was. Yeah, it was neat. I wasn't with the Giants for a real long time, but got to know some of the guys and got to enjoy being a part of. Again, that's a pretty storied. Whether I love them or not, that's a really storied organization. So it was,
I mean, obviously with Barry Bonds and
yeah.
history, and I can't forget the one and only Moises Alou. You brought him up earlier, and tell our fans what was he like, because he was a special talent, from what I heard, and a great player. Unfortunately, I couldn't watch him growing up, but to tell our fans what was he like as a teammate and a player.
Man, he was awesome. He was awesome. Just a great leader. He treated every guy on the roster the same, whether it was the last guy in the bullpen down to the top dogs. And again, at the time, his dad was our manager. So that was unique to
Oh,
have, a guy on the team in the big leagues and his dad, Felipe being the manager was interesting, but he just treated everybody with so kindly, with so much respect. And yeah, his game spoke for itself. He played so hard and was focused all the time. And I think that's what that's why they are where they are. But I guess sometimes you think, a guy's going to let down their guard a little bit after all these years, maybe on a Tuesday night game, but it's not guys like Moise. They never did. They always got after it. And it was really cool to watch and be a part of that.
And also the defensive wizard, Omar Vizquel.
Yes.
This guy made everybody's. I mean, this guy made pitchers' days easy. When they hit
Yeah.
when they gave up ground balls, you know that he was going to go get it and throw it to first base or
Yeah.
make a defensive play. What was that like seeing him? He's a
Oh,
special talent too.
yeah, he amazing. Those have to be some of the best hands I've ever. Just watching him play catch was amazing. He had all these little tricks and sleight of hand of how he could transfer the baseball, and it's like it never hit his glove. You'd have to keep looking, like, what did he just do? And he'd do it on purpose. I mean, he'd work on it, he'd practice all that, and literally, yes, everything he did in the game was amazing. But I enjoyed just watching him play catch. I was like, I mean, we'd be in batting practice, and you'd throw him a baseball, and it seemed to never hit his glove, and he had it right here, and you're like, how did he just do that? So extreme talent, also a very, very sweet man, treated everybody very well. He was just, again, I mean, it sounded like a broken record, but you're naming all the right guys. He just was a great leader. It treated us great. Didn't look at me as like, oh, you're a lowly rookie, and not a lot of guys did. Some guys did, but not a lot. But guys like Alou, Matheny, like I said,
Pedro Feliz. Mm-hmm.
yeah, Pedro Feliz was awesome too. Yeah, no, great guys on that team.
Yeah, so
I grew up a big JT Snow fan
oh,
too.
JT Snow, I forgot about him. Yeah, JT Snow.
Yeah, I love getting to know him a little better. That was fun.
Yeah, so before we get to our book, tell our
Yeah.
fans about your inspiring story. You went to prison, and tell our fans about that story. So I'll give you the floor here. Tell our fans what happened and how did you get out of it, and now with that book and the stuff you do after what you've been through and after your career.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to. And yeah, basically, then kind of backing up a little bit, from high school on. Well, first of all, we've talked about my dad was my idol, man. Like I looked up to my dad so much, and he was a great man and coached our team, still is. But he had some demons. He battled some addictions and alcoholism and things like that. And I picked up, whether it's a gene or a trait or just a behavior I watched, I picked it up, and I had that battle for most of my life. And at some point in my career, I had 5 years sober, and that's when my career really flourished. It was from 1998 to 2004. And then I had a real hard time in my life. I separated from my first wife. I wasn't around my daughter as much. I wasn't accountable as much as I was, and, calling home and doing all those things. And some of those old habits crept in. I made some poor choices to kind of compromise and go, you know what? I think I'm old enough to handle this again, and I'm going to give it a shot. And it just was a poor choice to begin with. And so, that kind of sets the scene for what ends up happening, because once I let those addictions back in my life, they really started to take over again. And so I would, when I was at the field, that was my refuge and I loved it. But the downtime, the coming down after the game, all these different things, a day game, and then you've got the rest of your Sunday. I just didn't handle that downtime very well. And so what I noticed is and I always think of it now as like I had a God-shaped hole inside of me, and I was just trying to fill it and stuff it with all this stuff. And none of it fulfilled me, never did. And I knew it was right, because on the other side of the coin, my mom is a pastor, and she is a woman of faith, and they raised us right. I knew right from wrong. Mm-hmm. And I usually knew, hey, this isn't the right choice, but I'm going to go for it. So fast forwarding to 2008, my goal was to pitch till I was 40. I think I was 33. I was in a Crash Davis Bull Durham role with the AA for the Texas Rangers in Frisco, Texas. And I was just, there with those guys to be a mentor and to kind of help them become professionals and things of that nature. But I was struggling off the field. And one of my biggest mistakes is I didn't want them to know that, because I didn't want to let them down. They looked up to me. They were younger guys, and I just didn't want to let them down. So I acted like I had it all together, and I put on the good face all the time. And they would ask me to go out with them, and I would say no, but then I'd go out and kind of do my own thing and really live in a double life, a double standard. And the things I was saying I was about, I wasn't representing. So fast forward, I fought them off. No, I'm not going out with you guys. And September 13th, 2008, we were in a championship series, and I just was driving to the ballpark, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to be home next week, and these guys have been great all season. I'm going to go out and blow off some steam with these guys, right? And a big part of my message is like, one choice, one night, putting yourself in the wrong situation can literally flip your life upside down. And I'm a testament to that. because September 13th was like every other day for the last 15 years, man. I got up, had something to eat, got my lunch, drove to the ballpark, playing cards, doing our thing, play a game. It's Groundhog Day in the minor league in baseball. Well, September 14th, I woke up and I was surrounded by folks in orange jumpsuits. I also had an orange jumpsuit on. Our clubhouse manager was there to bail me out. I heard my name over an intercom. I remember my name being called, you got drafted, what a happy moment. Heard my name over an intercom, and I'm like, where? I'm in jail. The heck, I blacked out. I got the paperwork. I was like, Brandon Boyd's the guy's name who bailed me out. I said, Boyd, what happened? He goes, man, I don't know. He goes, you called me last night and said you were here. I thought you were kidding. Thank God I came because you were here. And so what ended up happening, and so I pitched the next day at Intel Soul. We go home a couple days later. We lost that series. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm gonna brush this under the rug. This is gonna be okay. In my mind, in the way I was living, and my overserved mind, and my compromised mind, what I had done is I walked into a lady's apartment. I knocked on her door. I knew her. I met her like twice. And it was unlocked, and I walked in and tried to get in bed with her. And that's super hard to admit, and super shameful and embarrassing. But I want to be really transparent about it, because I've heard from people that go, look, I've been out of my mind and done some crazy, stupid stuff. I didn't realize, this can really cost you. And so fast forward again, I had 9 months out on bond before I knew what was going to happen to me. I went to a jury trial. Nolan Ryan came as a character witness. Jackie Moore, my manager, like pulling out all the stops. I don't want to go to jail. God, please keep me out of jail. And I got a 5-year prison sentence. So I went to Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I was facing 5 to 99 years. I got a 5-year. I'd never been in trouble. I had some good character witnesses. And you know what? People always ask me, would you change it? So I did 3.5 years on that sentence, walking through prison, seeing a lot of things that you can imagine were very hard. And but it really brought a few things into my life. It brought humility, which I needed. It brought perspective on this life's not all about you. It's not just about you and your career. There's other things going on around you that you need to be aware of. And in my mind, I'm a Christian. It's like God's put you on this earth for a different reason than just to pursue your own stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, it's great, but what are you using it for? And so, yeah, I walked through that 3.5 years. And I was going to say, people always ask if I would change anything. The only thing I would change is the hurt I caused everybody else, my family, that young lady's family, all these, things. But as far as what it did for me, I went in there and I took a lot of cognitive intervention classes. I got in my word a lot. You have a lot of time to pray and meditate and kind of peel back layers of, okay, this was one compromise, but why did this happen? I was sexually abused when I was a young child, and I share that with people because I know that I'm not alone in that. And some people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to heal that. And it's like, well, how does that show up later in your life if you don't deal with it, right? And so every choice I made, all of that is all on me. I take full responsibility for that. And then it helps shape me to be a better man. And so I made parole after 3.5 years, came out, started over, had absolutely nothing. I always tell everyone I had a little onion sack with a Bible and some hygiene. Anything I made in the game, I had spent on my responsibilities for those 3.5 years, plus attorneys trying to stay out of prison. So it's like, there you go, push reset. Let's see what's next. And man, what I noticed is if you own your stuff and you are humble and you change your behaviors, people want to give you a second chance. They will trust you again, but you've got to put the work in and you've got to change. And so that's what I tried to do. And I just kind of slowly but surely started taking humble jobs and just kind of like, next thing I knew, I went from working as a maintenance guy at the AAA park in Round Rock. And when I say maintenance, I wasn't fixing anything. Like I can't, but I was painting and staining and pressure washing, and happy as could be, just joyous as could be that I had freedom. And I was at a baseball stadium, which was great. And then that led to like a couple pitching lessons, which I used to do prior. And that voice in your head tells you with this X on your back now, no one's going to want to be around you. No one's going to want you to do pitching lessons or coach. Well, they did. They were gracious, and they instilled some trust in me, and which gave me more energy and faith to keep moving forward. And then that led to starting a couple teams, and then eventually a promotion with the Round Rock Express to a baseball outreach coordinator. And then I took a leap of faith on my own with my buddy, Brian Gordon, who pitched for the Yankees a little bit. And we started our own programs. We have a nonprofit youth and high school program, where we're able to now pour into kids and families, not just using what we, the great coaches that we had in our careers, but also my downfalls of like, hey guys, this is very serious stuff. if you're struggling, you can talk to me or you can talk to someone. Don't keep it in because this is what happened to me. So, and that led to felt led to share that story on a little broader net, cast a little broader net. And that was the book, like you said, from the bullpen to the state pen, and had some wonderful partners in that. And so now that story's out there and has led to allowing me to go speak and share a little bit more and try to encourage or motivate folks that, hey, if you've made an awful decision and you feel like there's just too much guilt and shame and you can't move past it, I've been there. Like I feel that, and you can, but these are some steps to get through that. Or again, hey, you're going down that road, right from wrong, and here's what can happen if you ignore that small still voice telling you to don't go down that road. So either way, just really trying to encourage people with my story, and it's been awesome to hear, and just guys like you give me an opportunity to come on here and share has been really neat.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that to our fans. And most players would not do that, but for you to be able to step up and share like a story like that, it's amazing. And now have a book about it, and it's truly inspiring. And man, I couldn't imagine being in your footsteps, spending like 3.5 years in prison and getting parole early, which is amazing. And now, and what's it been like for you to have obviously your wife, your second wife in your life, and then your kids in your life too, also just to have the support system now too.
So wonderful. So wonderful. Because like I shared before, there are those voices in your head that will tell you their lies, but they'll tell you like, who's going to want to be with you after this? Who's going to want to, look what you've been through, look what you've done, and all those things. And to have just a wonderful, supportive wife who you got to meet a little bit before this
Yeah.
on here, and man, talk about my kids' redemption story. I mean, I have an older son. I've had full custody of him since day one. And so I saw him once or twice, talked to him on the phone a little bit. But my two little girls, I say little, now I'm a grandpa now. That
Oh,
one's 20 and one is 14, Morgan and Ashlyn. Didn't speak to him on the phone for 2 years. We were so close. They were daddy's girls. And it was just hard because my ex had to go get support from her family. I understand it all, but it was so hard. And when I encourage guys and men or women that are estranged from their children because of their behaviors, it's like there's redemption. If you saw me with my daughters and my grandson now, you'd never know we had that time apart. Never. Like it's incredible. And it's all, for me, it's all God and it's all the restoration. And it's also all like being willing to like move forward. If you come out and you just keep the same old behaviors, people get tired of that. But if you're willing to change and truly put your best foot forward, man, he's restored my kids to me, my wife, baseball. I didn't know. I'm like, baseball may never be a part of my life. I'm every day. That's what I'm doing again. And it's just amazing to think about where I've been and how much God has given me since then, even after all that.
yeah. So our fans are chiming in and they're saying, thank you for sharing this story. And they said your story is making their day now.
Oh,
And we got a fan saying, you deserve to be, they said you deserve to be like a pitching coach or a manager one day in the major league.
oh wow. That's so wonderful. I so appreciate that. My dream, Nathan, was I was going to pitch till I was 40, right? And the Rangers were already grooming me to be a coach. I want to be a big league bullpen coach.
Oh,
That
wow.
was my dream. Yeah. So I don't think I'd pass the background check at this point, but I'd love to do it. I say that in jest, but I mean, seriously, I get it. Major league organizations can't really do that. But man, I would love it. Anytime I get to go to a baseball field, I was coaching 14-year-olds this weekend. I'll have 17-year-olds in 2 weeks. I've done a little bit for Padres scouting teams and stuff like that. So I'll vary. But if it was a big league bullpen or it's a 14U game, if I get an opportunity to go to the baseball field and coach, I'm gonna give them everything I have. Period. Like everything I have because I absolutely love it. I'll take one day of it for granted.
Yeah. So I forgot to ask you before if you don't mind me asking, how many years sober are you now?
Oh, great question.
Yeah.
15 plus since September 13th, 2008. Yeah, that was the day, man. And golly, 15 years sober now is so wonderful. I actually had a teammate reach out to me. I did a podcast and it was on LinkedIn. He
Oh, was
reached
it Jason Greeley?
I think it was Greeley's. Yeah, the mound visit. I believe it was that one.
Yeah.
And he reached out. He's a former teammate of mine. He said, "Puff, I'm at rock bottom. I need help." And so those are the calls or the messages you get, and you're like, "Wow, like now I'm on the other side of this." And I feel like everybody's best equipped to help those that are going through what they already went through. And so I'm able to speak to that and go, "Yeah, man, I've been there. I've lost everything. He's estranged from his daughter right now. I mean, all these things." I'm like, "I get it. I've been there, but here's where you can go, and here's the steps." So just so cool to have some sobriety and be able to help pass that on.
And yeah, I gotta ask you, since I work with or cover, since we cover Somerset, I might say, I might let them know if you guys remember Brandon Puffer. But what was it like playing for Somerset Patriots when they were in the different league?
Yeah, it was amazing. Man, we were talking about that off air. I had Sparky Lyle as my
Yeah.
skipper and John Monafusco as my pitching coach. And man, it was awesome. What I think I was telling you, I feel like New Jersey gets a bad rap. What a beautiful part of the country I was in. And also very humbling because at that point, I'd always only been an affiliated ball. Somerset was independent league, and I was kind of in between organizations. And my agent said, better to go pitch and play than just sit at home. I said, okay, kind of independent ball, we'll see. And to that point, I had a little bit of double A time. It was the highest level of baseball I had seen. It was at least double A, if not triple A, former big leaguers all over the league. So really learned a ton from those guys. It was a wonderful experience for me. And I guess I actually, in the first one, I didn't know this, but they reached out not that long ago. I'm the first one to play there and make it to the big leagues that had no previous big league experience. So guys had gone back and forth, but like I guess stopping there with no big league experience and then eventually making it, I guess I was the first one to do that. So that was an honor.
Hey, speaking of Sparky, he still works with us at Somerset, and I'll bring it up to him. Sparky,
Please.
yeah, he still works with Somerset, and what was it like? What was it like being with him and having him as a skipper?
Oh man, Sparky was awesome. Both those guys were amazing. They're obviously just veterans of the game, had been around so much, seen so much. They both had kind of like Sparky had that gruff but like
Yeah.
quick like humor, like that dry humor. So it was just fun to be around those guys. And obviously he was a legend in Somerset, so that was neat to be a part of and watch that. I literally, I mean, I tell guys all the time if they're like, "Man, I'm thinking about independent ball," I'm like, "Hey, that was the best." One of the best experiences of my life. Put a lot of things in perspective and taught me a lot. So, and Sparky was a big part of that. I'd love it if you said hi to him for me.
Oh yeah, so yeah, when I see him the next time, I'll bring up your name and tell him that we had him on the show on this show, uh,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he's gonna have stories about you.
He might. Yeah, he might. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, so if you have time, do you have time for a fan Q&A real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a couple of fan questions in here. The first one is one of our friends. They want to know who was the toughest hitter you had to face throughout your career.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. I faced a lot of the good ones, Pujols and Bonds and those guys. But the one who absolutely wore me out, hands down, was Chipper Jones.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, it didn't matter what I threw, where I tried everything, and it wasn't like I think he's 5 for 5, 6 for 6. It wasn't like a huge, but whatever it was, every time he faced me was a hit. It wasn't just a hit; it was like a wall banger. Like ball was smoked every time. So he wore me out.
Cool. Another fan question. They want to know. Okay, they want to know what was the best. Okay, what was the best food you ever ate while? I mean, either before a game or after a game.
Oh man, that's a good one. I'll tell you what, there's so many good ones. I remember my first experience with the true Philly cheesesteak in Philly, right? Or the Chicago pizza. You go to these places and they're so famous for their food. But if I'm being honest, the first time I ever got on a charter flight and had like steak and lobster on your plane, I was like, what is this? What in the world? Like this kind of food on a charter flight? So I mean, that big league lifestyle, and I didn't get a whole bunch of it, but it's just not even, it doesn't even feel real, having the opportunity, even in the clubhouse. The clubhouse guys do such an amazing job of catering in great food. And typically relevant to where you are, right? Like I said, Philly, we get cheesesteaks, Southern California, In-N-Out Burger back then, because it wasn't everywhere. So it was just really neat to kind of get a little bit of the culture everywhere you went.
Yeah, I mean now since I'm sure you guys are enjoying the barbecue in Texas.
Oh yeah, yeah. Barbecue's a big deal here for sure. Yes, absolutely.
Another fan question. They want to know, first of all, they want to say thank you for sharing your story, and they want to know what's it like having the book now, and then letting people read your story.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure for sharing. First off, and it's really neat. It really is. And it was something I tried to do for about 10 years on my own, and ended up partnering with some guys who gave me some accountability and walked me through it. And really surreal the first time I had held that first copy. And it just opens the door to my mom. Like I said, my mom's a pastor, so she's dealing with people's issues all the time, and she'll run across someone and go, "Hey, I have a book that maybe will speak to." So it's nice to have it all kind of condensed and a story that can hopefully, encourage people, motivate people, whatever the case may be. So, it was one of my bucket list items of like, hey, at one point I'd love to have a book published. And now that I do, it really feels great.
Another fan question. They want to know, do you like the new rules now in baseball with the pitch clock and
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, I consider myself old school. I really do. And I try so hard to be like, okay, just you gotta adapt, you gotta evolve. And I like the pitch count. I've always believed in tempo, working quick. It seems like it's ironing itself out. It seems like it's doing great now. In the beginning, my concern was a couple things of like, even like the hitter, there's such a mental side to this game of going through your pre-pitch routine and doing all these things. And yeah, nobody wants to watch like somebody who's just a rain delay on the mound. I mean, I get that, but sometimes I thought like it was interfering with that. Hitter's not quite ready, he needs to step out, gather himself, or the pitcher.
yeah.
And I just felt like it was taking away those nuances of the game. But again, I think everyone's adjusted and it's not talked about as much. And it has sped up the game because ultimately I love tempo. Like every pitcher I teach, it's like hit the ball and go. But just as long as they have time to go through, like there's been a couple of times where someone makes a debut or they play at their stadium where they just left and they get a violation. In my opinion, it's like have a little feel for that. You know what I mean? But I get it too, because if you don't lay down the law early on and you leave a little bit of gray, then that's going to pose a problem. So I see what they're trying to do, and it seems like it's worked itself out. So I'll be honest, I was against it at first, and then I'm coming around to it, and I'm starting to enjoy it a little.
So we'll take three more fan questions. So another one here. One of our fans wants to know about what's it like seeing a former major league player's sons being in the league now. For example, Gavin Biggio, Greg Biggio's son, and then you see Bo Bichette Jr., and then the Bichette family. And what's it like seeing that?
That's awesome. Guerrero,
Yeah.
all those guys. And then you look at some of the swing compilations of those guys and their dads, and it's amazing. Like, it makes me feel old, first of all, but then it's just so cool. And Biggio's the first one I thought of because I'll never forget. My son's about his age, and they would shag BP together. One time we're in Wrigley Field, guy hits a line drive. I think they're like 10. And little Biggio goes to catch it, doesn't get any glove, no leather on it, hits him right in the chest, lights him up. And I'm like, oh my God. And Craig's like, he's fine. He's fine. I'm like, no, he's not fine. That ball almost killed him. They take him behind the bullpen back there, behind the left field fence. And I think Sosa even goes back there and tries to make him feel better. So he's good. And I just remember these memories of these little guys hanging around the ball field. Now they're having success in the big leagues. Really neat, really cool. And I can't imagine for the families how awesome that is.
Yeah. And the last two questions here from our fans. One of our fans wants to know, obviously you play with the Astros. So what are your thoughts on now the Astros competing on a high level every single year, won the World Series last year and being in I think it's 6 straight years they've been in the World Series. And obviously everybody knows what happened in 2017, but aside from that, what has been your impression so far being a former player on that team and now seeing them succeed in a high level with a lot of talent?
Yeah, it's been super exciting. And again, as you mentioned, I live in Texas now. So there's a little affinity there, as well as just the first organization that gave me an opportunity. You're always going to kind of be near and dear to that. So, and my wife's from Houston. So we often watch the games, and a couple of the guys I played with are still around the organization in different roles. And so just a super cool thing to watch them have success as an organization. I think they were just building on that when I was there 02, 03, and then 05 is when they really got over that hump. And ever since, it's just been a solid organization. I mean, I love to see the heart of some of those guys. I mean, they're not always the highest payroll and things of that nature. They just have a system put in place and they develop their guys. And that is really neat to watch because I'll be honest, it's how it works. I get it. But sometimes it turns me off when guys just pay and buy. And the Dodgers are kind of getting in that boat. And that's my favorite organization. And so it's like, so watching a team like Houston build up from within and have so much success is, I think, wonderful for the game. And I really enjoy it.
And do you think, obviously, since being in Texas Rangers having a good year too, same division, can you see like maybe two teams in the same division make the playoffs this year, like for the Rangers and obviously Houston could make the playoffs, but do you see maybe the Rangers making some noise here, maybe giving Houston a push here?
I think it's possible, man. Obviously, they did a bunch in the offseason to make that run. They've got the new stadium. There's some buzz around that. I love Mike Maddox. I think he's my favorite pitching coach I've ever had. So it's really cool to see what he's doing, and now he's got some real weapons to work with. So with pitching kind of usually kind of ruling the day, I think they do have a chance. Obviously they got to stay healthy and things of that nature, but if they do, I think they've got a real chance to do that, and that'd be really neat to watch. They call it the Silver Boot Series. It's be pretty cool when we play against the Rangers, and so that'd be neat for those two organizations to both move on and compete for it.
And our last fan question, one of our fans wants to know who was the funniest teammate you played with.
Oh man, that's a good one. Funniest teammate. The one who just pops up right away is Derek Holland. He was super funny, had a lot of impressions. You always got that guy or two that keeps it really light, which is great. Greg Zahn you said you mentioned his name earlier. He kept things pretty light. It was definitely hilarious. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing a couple because each team has one or two that just really keep you going. And so, I mean, to be honest with you, rookie ball year, Brzezinski's probably the only one who remember this name. There's a guy named Heath Johnson. Never made it. Played like 4 years in the minors. We're still in contact. I literally think he's the funniest dude I've ever met in my entire life. Like, the guy is so funny, and he's still like every time he calls me, it's like 30 minutes of just him talking and me cracking up. So a guy who no one would know, his name's Heath Johnson, and he was my first rookie ball teammate, and the guy was hilarious.
I lied. We have two more questions, but he put into one from our good friend Julian. Actually, they have a podcast, so you should definitely check out. I'll send his page to you. Awesome. They do a podcast called Dugout Station. Is a baseball podcast, and I'm sure they would love to have you on too. So I'll send you his page so you can get in contact with them. So our friend Julian, he wants. I'm sure I think you mentioned this earlier, but he wants to know what is it like playing for Sparky, and then your most memorable part of your MLB experience.
Yeah, well, as I alluded to earlier, playing for Sparky was awesome. What a legend he is, and to see a town just look up to a man in such a way was really, really cool. Loved every minute of it. And then my favorite moment in the big leagues was my first big league win. It was in the Silver Boot Series. I was with Houston. We were playing against the Rangers in Arlington, and at that time it was a pretty good hitters park. They had Palmeiro, Rodriguez, Juan Gonzalez, Michael. I mean, their lineup was stacked, and our starter got roughed up a little bit. I just came in to kind of mop up for an inning or two, and I just, for whatever reason, had things working that night. Ended up throwing, 4 or 5 innings, and we came back and won. And just to be a part of that was really neat. To have some success against that lineup, but also to be a part of the Silver Boot and be on, get a W for Houston at the time was probably my best memory. And I still have a little plaque and a little ball they gave me. And between that and my debut, I would say that was it.
Well, yeah. So before we let you go, where can our fans find your book, and then where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book, as you said, From the Bullpen to the State Pen, is on Amazon. And then I'm at brandonpuffer.com, or I think if you put in coachpuffpositive.com, it'll take you to Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and all that. So most of everything's under Coach Puff Positive.
Brandon, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show today, and thank you to our fans for tuning in, asking great questions, and obviously listening to this amazing story. And we would love to obviously we're going to stay connected. We would love to have you back on the show. And we got to meet in person when you come to either to New York, New Jersey area, or we come to Texas to meet you guys. And like I said, this is truly amazing. Overcoming a lot of things in your life and changing your life. And you have an amazing family, by the way. So shout out to that for your amazing family. Keep up the great work. And thank you again for sharing your story. I learned a lot today.
Oh, what a pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity. And yes, I hope we get to build on the relationship as well. I really appreciate it.
And tell your wife, thank you for this. And then, have a great week and keep it going.
Okay. Likewise. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. And then I'll send you our friends podcast, and then our team will, I'll have my team edit the video for you guys. And then, I'm hoping our team gets it by tonight or tomorrow. So
perfect, man. I look forward to it. We look forward to sharing it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.